When you build a gaming PC, fans can get really expensive. So today, we're going to test in the name of science how many fans you really need.
In today's video, we're going to start with 0 fans, work our way up to 12 to see is there a difference in how much temperature improvements you get by adding fans to your gaming PC. We'll dive into the scientific testing after we give a shout out to today's video sponsor, Shopify, the platform we use to sell our gaming PCs for PC bros, and you guys at home can start your own business on Shopify today. More on that later, but let's go ahead and dive into what we're going to be doing to set up this scientific experiment, how we're going to start, the PC specs that we have, and show you guys, is there actually a difference in investing in more fans?
So this experiment is going to be nice and simple. We have a pretty nice PC here that we'll talk about the specs in a minute, and we basically took out all of the fans. This build has 0 fans minus the ones in the graphics card and the CPU cooler, but it's a fairly high airflow case, and what we're going to be doing is starting our benchmarks, which is OCCT, and we're going to be playing a AAA title, and then we're going to just add 1 fan at a time after each benchmark to see, do fans really make that big of a difference? And of course, if the test is going really slow or we find that there's major differences or no differences at all, we may add more than 1 fan at a time, but we're going to do our best to be the scientists you guys always wanted us to be.
So before we dive into the testing, we got to talk about our test bench. Test bench is actually just a PC build that has no fans in it, and show you guys what specs we went with. Then we're diving into some back-to-back testing where we start with no fans, add 1 fan, 2 fans, 3 fans, and so on, and we will see, does it make a difference at all? Let's talk about the parts of this build.
Now next up we have the Asus TUF B850 Plus Wi-Fi DDR5 coming in at $230. It's a pretty premium board that does have Wi-Fi built in, good VRM covers, good upgrade path, and overall it's going to do really nicely for this build. So for the CPU, we went with the respectable AMD Ryzen 5 9600X 6-core 12-thread that we paid $208 for, and we got a free SSD on Newegg. So it's a really good CPU because of the fact that it can boost so high. I mean, this thing goes over 5 gigahertz, and of course you could liquid cool the CPU. You definitely can't get away with the stock cooler. We went with the ID Cooling Frozn A410DK, which we paid $35 for. It has 2 120mm fans on it. We got it set up in a pretty ideal airflow matter where it's just the typical. We have air coming in and then going out where the exhaust fan would be. I think that this build will be pretty self-sufficient, but we will find out, of course. Now for the graphics card, we went fairly high-end. We have a Gigabyte Windforce RTX 5070 12GB that we paid $630 for. Now, so once again, I mean, this GPU is a pretty power-efficient GPU. It's got a good-sized heatsink on it. We went the 3-fan model, which I think will be really good for this test because most people that are, doing like a mid-range to high-end build, they're usually going to load their build up with fans, and that's what's cool about this is we can put up to 12 inside of it. But I think this GPU will be pretty self-sufficient, but we'll see just how much of an impact fans really make. So for the SSD, we actually went with a pretty high-end one. Shout out to SKHynix for sending over their 1TB Gen 5 NVMe SSD at $169. We actually added a Patriot Gen 4 SSD as well, just for fun. But this motherboard has heat sinks on it, so I think those will keep the NVMe's fairly cool. So yeah, shout out to SKHynix. Hopefully we don't kill your drive in this video.
Now for the RAM, we went with Corsair Vengeance 32 gigs of DDR5 memory at 6400 megahertz. It is the RGB memory. Now, RAM, we'll be curious to see what the impact is when it comes to airflow, because normally RAM, again, doesn't require any additional airflow to begin with, has built-in heat sinks and stuff. We'll see if we have any instability issues because of the temperatures. I don't really think so, but it is something to keep in mind. The RAM doesn't really matter too much, but with the RAM that we have, it'll pair very nicely with our CPU and GPU combo. And for this kit, we paid $120. Once again, guys, keeping with the Corsair theme, thanks again to Corsair for sending all this stuff over for us to be able to do for this build. We have the RM850X Shift power supply, which is an 850 watt power supply. It does come in at $120, which is pretty good value for an 850 watt power supply with the Shift design that helps with cable management. Now, with the way this case is laid out, it's not a dual chamber case. That could change things a little bit, but for this particular case, we're very interested to see what the airflow situation will be like when we add a bunch of fans, and that Shift power supply has plenty of watts to power our build. Now, lastly, the case, we did mention this. This is the Corsair Frame 4000D RS, which we paid $110 for. This case is really awesome for airflow. It's very similar to the normal 4000D, but it has more mounting points. And it is a really cool case because there's a lot of modularity you can get from Corsair to be able to swap things out. Now, this thing can max out at 12 fans. And the idea for this video is we're going to go 1 at a time, but we're going to leave our own discretion up to it to where if we're doing 1 fan, 2 fan, 3 fans, and nothing crazy is happening, we might jump all the way up to 6 fans. Or if things get a little bit crazier, we might slow down and just do 1 at a time. We're going to leave that open to interpretation based on the live results of this, because if we do 1 fan at a time for 12 fans, that might take a while. But you know what? If there is interesting results because of that, we will continue with it. But when we do opt for all those fans, we'll be installing the fans up front, the fans on the side, fans up top, 1 in the back, and in the basement. There is this ventilation down here for the basement that does come with a little cover on it. Jonah's going to wiggle it right there. It is so you can hide the cables if you're not using the airflow being pulled from the basement with these 2 fans that are below the graphics card. So we will remove that when we do get to the point where we add those fans, but just want to mention that. And speaking of the fans, we have these Corsair RS 120M fans. We have 3 packs in total, 12 fans in total. We are going to be using these fans and not the ones that it came with because we're going to use 12 exactly. They are the same fans that the case comes with, but we have a whole pack of them, so might as well use these for consistency. And they are RGB fans, and in total, this is $165 in terms of RGB fans. Now, that is a lot, and Corsair fans tend to be more premium, but for this video, if you were going with a whole Corsair build and you're like, I want to save a little bit of money, how many fans do I actually need from Corsair? We can show you guys how you can save some money and maybe put more money back into real performance hardware like GPU or CPU. Give you all baseline temperatures with no fans, then we're gonna add one and move on forward and see how many fans do you actually need in a gaming PC.
All right, guys, we are ready to be scientists. So we're not starting off with the PC game. We got to start off with an actual PC benchmark. So this is OCCT. We're going to give a shout out to them in a minute here, but OCCT Enterprise. And it's got a lot of really fancy test results that we're going to get in a minute, but we're going to run the CPU plus RAM, basically fixed at a steady, large data set. So this is going to really push that CPU more than any game likely will. And we're going to be pushing our RAM, because why not? We got RAM that's a fastly rated speed. We're only going to push that to 80% because that may destroy Windows if we go any higher. And then for 3D adaptive, we're going to run the test as steady so that we don't have to worry about, going up and down. We're just going to force that 5070 to get used 100%. We're going to run each test for 30 minutes, which with an air cooler, it's going to take no time at all to get the peak temp.
But yeah, shout out to OCCT. This is a good stress testing software that allows us to do an adaptive load on the GPU, which could be very normal for just a normal gaming session. But we're going to run this stress test for 30 minutes, get our report, go over the numbers, and then dive into a gaming test, add our fan, and keep moving the way up to see, does it make a difference to add extra fans? Let's run the stress test and find out. Okay guys, we ran our first 30-minute test and we have some interesting data to go with. We're going to be focusing more on the CPU die average, similar to when we did our CPU cooler video. This right here is the ratio of your die average across the core. So it's better just to use the normal average temperature. You normally get a better consistent number that way. So our CPU die average, we end up getting an average of 77.73 degrees Celsius. Again, baseline, not too bad, honestly. I mean, it's within normal temperatures. And a max of 80.04. Now, if we scroll down, and here we go, 5070 GPU temperature, our average was 75.20 degrees Celsius with a max of 76.27. Again, not overheating, a little warm, but not overheating. It's within normal temperature, especially for 100% load.
The graph of that one.
Yeah, so here's the graph of this one. Basically, they mark it as 80C. I guess it's just based on the scale. So once it goes above 80, they'll show a higher number. But we are in the upper temperature range, around 75, all the way across the board. We didn't really dip down below that very much. So this is one I think we'll see a pretty decent difference with when we add an extra fan, but that's what the sign test is for. Then we're gonna add that extra fan and see what the results look like once we add the first one. I think that's gonna be the most interesting result.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are in Oblivion Remastered. I'm gonna be honest, I haven't even checked the settings yet because they don't really matter. We're just gonna be running the same settings every single time, but we're running high at 4K with DLSS on. Shout out 5070, it's running it. But we let it sit here for probably about like 15, 20 minutes. I'm just kind of doing this around benchmark
warming up.
And this is right after we just did the OCCT test. Like this PC's been on for it's been on for more than a day now. So the temps aren't gonna get any hotter before you guys freak out and you're like, well, you need to run the test for 24 hours. No, we don't need to do that on an air-cooled PC. But it's looking pretty good, so.
That's 69, 70 degrees on the GPU and
CPUs
upper 70s.
A lot.
Yeah. Basically over 75 on CPU and almost 70 on the GPU.
Yeah.
It's pretty fair.
Yeah, it's not, I wouldn't know I didn't have fans in this build, is the way I would put it.
Yes.
So, all right, well, cool.
Oh, no.
It was jarring. Oh, check it out. Ooh, I finally found the
He's
speed
got the
run.
hack.
All right, we'll hit one Jonah.
Yeah.
The
CPU hit 78.
Yeah, I think at one point before we started benchmarking, I saw it hit like 80, so we've clearly reached max temp. But yeah, this is pretty cool to see. So I think Matt and I have agreed we're gonna start off with the exhaust fan, right?
Yeah, let's add an exhaust fan.
It's pretty standard. Like a lot of builds are gonna come with just one exhaust fan to start, so we're gonna run it like that.
One thing that's important to mention as well, and I don't know if we have mentioned it, to keep the fans consistent speed, they are going into a hub. They're not gonna be controlled on separate headers. So all the fans will operate at the same speed, and they won't adjust based on what they're reading. It'll just be a fixed speed. So that'd be the best way to keep everything controlled. First fan.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and add one more fan. And speaking of fans, thanks to today's sponsor, Shopify, you can actually buy Toasty Bros merch.
Oh yeah, Shopify, guys. We use Shopify to run PC Bros, our PC selling business, where you can actually buy Toasty Bros merch as well. And we gotta tell you all about Shopify's features for you at home looking to start a business or upgrade your current setup to sell your products more effectively.
I love that with Shopify, it doesn't matter if you're a startup business or if you're already an up and running business, it works great for everyone. They make it easy for you to start your own e-commerce site with no web building experience.
Whether you want your business to be exclusively online or in person or both like we do, Shopify has all the tools in one package to make it super easy to run your business effectively online and in person.
Unlike this fan video, we're actually really simple guys. So Shopify is great because if we need a little extra money, like some capital lending, they always have us covered.
So what are you guys waiting for? Use our link in the description down below to start your Shopify trial today like we did. And big thanks again to Shopify for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get back to some fan testing, shall we? Okay guys, the first fan is installed just to make sure. I mean, look, there's no other fans installed in here. And what are we doing for the setup in terms of like the RPM and everything?
So we have a hub installed in the back so that we don't have to worry about like each fan running at different RPMs. And what I did is I set that hub to run at exactly 1,000 RPM. So each fan should run at 1,000. I think it's a respectable number. I normally go for like, honestly, like 400 or 500 at like idle. And I usually try to have the fans go above maybe like 1,500 under max load. So we'll just keep it at a crisp 1,000. Some people may not say it's the most realistic test because a lot of you guys are gonna run it to your motherboard, but we're also not real scientists.
I'll put this glass panel back on, everything will be back to normal, and then we'll run our OCCT test for 30 minutes. All right guys, we ran OCCT with one fan, which I will say, I feel like it's gonna make a decent difference, but we have to see the report. The report, Jesse.
All right, it's gonna be exciting. So one exhaust fan versus no fans.
All right, so monitoring, okay, again, left side is no fans, right side is fan. So we're going to start with the average. So let's go to average. So it looks like we did drop.
Yeah, we got two different charts here because of the baseline difference.
Yeah, so it looks like with the one fan, we had an average of 74.19 degrees Celsius versus 77.73. That's a difference.
Yeah.
Is it a totally groundbreaking difference? No, but it's a difference. The max is lower as well, so that's cool. Let's go to the GPU. We're at 73.69 on the one fan versus 75.20. The max went down by 2 as well, 74.74 versus 76.27. So there's a difference.
Yeah.
Will another fan make a difference? I don't know. We went from nothing, well, minus the cooler fans, to one fan, and I did a good job at exhausting the heat because it is an exhaust fan. Maybe an intake will add even more. That'd be the interesting thing, but we gotta bring Benchmarkus back to verify that.
All right, we're back in Oblivion Remaster. We got our old boy Benchmarkus with one exhaust fan, nothing else, and these temps seem better. It's funny because they're like running the same now. They're both like 65, 67.
I feel like the CPU is doing a lot better, actually.
Well, which makes sense because the exhaust fan is right next to our two-fan CPU cooler. So in a way, it's almost like, I guess, what would that be, a static air pressure?
Yep.
Where it's just pulling air. But it seems to be making a bigger difference than I would have thought.
Yeah, so far, I mean, GPU is definitely lower, looking around 67. This is the part where I think we're getting upper 70s on the 9600X, but now we're actually getting below 70 at some points. Again, this is not a perfect scientific experiment. The variables aren't like perfect, but it's just a quick little show of like live action gameplay, what the difference looks like, and it looks like exhaust fan is not exhausting, it's actually helpful.
Okay, I think for the next fan we're gonna do intake on the front, because that's gonna be, we're trying to kind of follow what typical pre-builds will do. So exhaust fan's like a given typically, and then a lot of times they're gonna do a middle front fan. So it's almost kind of like a upwards airflow. I kind of have a feeling, especially our GPU, I feel like we're gonna see some better temps once again.
Let's add another fan. As promised, we have one intake fan up front, and the same one in the exhaust.
Yep, we're starting to get to that typical pre-built territory now with just our single intake, single exhaust. This is how a lot of you all build your PCs at home when they're not like super high end. Probably if it's this high end, I would hope you do more fans, which we'll get to in a minute, but we're gonna test out the most ideal setup now, I think.
Okay, this is two fans versus one fan right now, and we're gonna see what the actual numbers are after the OCCT run is done, and we did go down. So the average with the two fans is 71.96, it went down by a decent amount, versus 74.19 on the single exhaust setup. I think exhaust and intake is pretty important to mention as well. Adding an intake fan definitely seemed to make a difference. So it looks like we have a max of 73.89 versus 77.69. So that is a pretty big drop for the CPU.
I'm curious to see if we're gonna see like maybe a 2 or 3 degree difference with each, because so far I think both fans have dropped by like 2 or 3 degrees. So we just keep seeing that.
Okay, so then GPU temperature. This one doesn't look like a major difference. So the average is 72.62 with 2 fans versus 73.69. The max is 74.25 versus 74.74. So again, not a major difference. And the minimum doesn't really matter too much. So this is interesting. We now have an intake fan and an exhaust fan. I'd be curious to see what would be different if it was 2 exhaust fans, but that would be for another video. That's a lot of different testing there. But for the sake of just going traditional route, where we're probably gonna, add another front fan or an exhaust fan up top?
I think we do an exhaust fan up top now, kind of above the CPU cooler.
Okay, but before we do that, Benchmarkers has to run. He has to ride once again. CPU seems about the same. GPU seems about the same.
I feel like at the moment, I think we're like 1 or 2 degrees cooler on both.
Which would match the OCCT results, which were not dramatic for the GPU. CPU, again, we're not under 100% load, so that would probably be, the reason why.
I think when we went up here the second, so when we had one fan, I think we,
see, this one is right.
I was about to be like, I think we hit 70.
Yeah.
So there must just be a spot right there where it just loads a bunch in, and no matter what cooler you have, it's not going to keep up, perfectly. But yeah, it seems like the GPU in this one's liking it a little more, funny enough.
Yeah, it seems to be, which is cool. I mean, I would think all the hardware would like to have some sort of intake fan pushing that fresh air in, but our case in particular is interesting because it is very open design. So there's a lot of airflow already naturally going in. It's just kind of propelling that air towards the hardware a little bit faster.
Yep, and just moving it so it can't build up quite as quick or as long, but all right, so that's looking pretty decent. So now we're gonna go and put one more exhaust, because we have to do an uneven number anyways. So one more exhaust, and we're gonna go up top, kind of above the CPU cooler this time to see what happens.
Exhaust fan.
Yep, so 1 intake, 2 exhaust now, and I think you probably normally wouldn't put the exhaust like all the way at the end like this, but it'll make it easier for us to go like boop, boop, boop. And honestly, I think this will have the most impact since it's right above those CPU fins. So see how it does.
Okay, guys, it's time to save the report. 3 fans, 3 fan report. Monitoring, let's go. All right, we're on GPU right now. Scroll all the way back up to CPU average, and the grand result is we've dropped even more, guys. Oh my goodness.
Oh, look, and it's almost, this one's more like, it's like 1 to 2.
1 to 2. So we're at 69.85 on the 3-fan setup versus the 2-fan setup at 71.96. Improvements. That's cool.
Yeah.
The max went down as well, so that's cool. Now GPU, this fan is, I guess it's close to the GPU, but it's not like right above the CPU cooler like the other one is. So will it make a difference? Let's find out.
It's the concept of getting rid of some of the CPU heat, maybe.
Maybe. Because all heat, if it's built up inside the case, it'll have an impact to some regard. It made a difference. 71.84 versus 72.62. And this actually seems like it went down lower than when we added the front fan.
A little more,
because the fan was closer to the graphics card, I guess. So again, real quick, average 71.84 with 3 fans versus 72.62. The max is 73.32 on 3 fans versus 74.25 on 2. So looking pretty good. Benchmarkers, you tell me.
It's a lot of feeling. It's a lot of feeling when it comes to these.
We are just doing this live. We're not looking at a graph or anything because we're the Toasty Bros. That's what we do. But it feels lower.
I feel like 1 or 2 degrees, right?
GPU definitely feels a little bit lower, but not dramatic, where we're like in the 50s all of a sudden. We're still at 60 degrees.
Let's see if we can hit our 70s.
Is it gonna hit 70? Yep, still at 70s. Does it go up? That seems a little lower.
And it came down quicker.
Yep.
It definitely came down quicker.
Okay. All right, we're going back again. We're going back. We're going all over the place.
Science.
You all will be able to see it at home. Again, this one is just kind of a little additional test and all that sort of fun stuff. But yeah, this is cooler than when we first started, which should have been obvious to anybody. But what are we thinking the next van's going to be? Another front intake?
Maybe I think another front could be good.
Yeah, so we'll do our front intake, get a little more air coming in, so then we're back to balanced. 2 intake, 2 exhaust, which for a lot of people might be, I actually died. For a lot of people, might actually be a normal scenario for like a micro ETX build, but in this case, we'll run 2 and 2 and see what happens. Okay, we are now at 4 fans. We got 2 intake, 2 exhaust.
We're so even. We're so even. So yeah, we ended up doing the top intake this time. So we're very air focused, like towards the top of the case. So it'll be fun once we start to move down low as well.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So let's see what the OCCT report pulls and see if we're making the same difference. And we are, wow, it's so consistent.
Dude, it's so linear.
It's basically 2 degrees. So almost we'll just say 67.99 degrees Celsius, basically 68 for the average with 4 fans versus 3 fans of 69.85. We're still going down, guys. This is crazy. The max is lower by 2 once again, 69.56 versus 72.06. So we're making improvements here with the CPU. Now the GPU, based on the placement of this one should impact the GPU a little bit more.
I mean, I feel like by the end of this test, are we gonna go below 60 on both?
Is it just gonna go down by 2 every time? Is it really that linear? Like, where does it stop? It went up. Is this one where we're starting to hit the ceiling here, where it's not actually, because the temperature went up?
You know, I don't know. That could, well, because the test should be consistently running it at max.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
We had these random spots right here where we dipped into the 60s.
That was in the first, the 3-fan test.
But we only had we had less of those here. We hit 67 at one point, but this might be one that's within, I would say, margin of error. It's like below a degree for the most part. So this is one where I would say no difference. So we're starting to see the GPU not make a difference, but the CPU still making a difference. We'll see what Benchmarkus has to say about that.
All right, we're back at it again. We got Benchmarkus, and I'm seeing like that 60 looks lower on that CPU
temp.
for sure.
We'll see what happens.
Look at the
around
GPU
the
though.
It does look a little lower.
I think it's like the same.
Because
we were seeing like before the CPU was tied with it, and it no longer is.
Now this might be where things get interesting, because again, there's so many variables that could be at play here. If this was a liquid cooler, would this be different? An air cooler is much more reliant on all the air coming in rather than just exhausting all the air out of the case. So,
oh wow, look. No 70. Wow.
Interesting.
Okay.
Oh wait, 66, 68, 69. Oh, we didn't touch 70. Oh, wait a minute. So it's making a difference for the CPU.
Yeah, this is something. We'll have to have McAllister really go through and check like kind of more side by side on like the GPU aspect of things, but so far we're kind of thinking CPU is, dude, am I doing
You're doing it over again.
I feel like before I had this going well. But yeah, it seems like everything's been like -2 degrees almost every time, except this time the GPU is just kind of like, I'm okay.
So be curious to see, once we add 5 fans, will the CPU still go down? Will the CPU follow the same behaviors of the GPU? Well, we gotta go to 5 fans and find out. All right, guys, we're sliding on the panel for the 5th fan. We decided to keep the back and forth going, so now we have an extra exhaust fan, meaning we have 2 here, and 1 in the back. So it's a dual intake, 3 exhaust system. Test must continue.
Test must go on, and I'm not thinking, I don't know, you know what, this one is right above kind of the grill of the GPU, so maybe the GPU will come down.
All right, guys, so 5 fans. We're testing now to see if there's a difference, and we are seeing...
This is interesting. It actually went up slightly.
It went up. Are we getting to the point of diminishing return here, ladies and gentlemen? So
it could be.
With 5 fans, we got an average of 68.89 versus 67.99. And so where's the fan in this now?
We added just 1 more exhaust up top in the middle.
Is it the Noctua theory?
Oh, where it's taking air
from the front.
Yep.
It could be
it is.
It could be the Noctua theory, where it's basically taking air from the front fan that's giving more intake, and it's exhausting it out before it even goes inside the fan. So
it's basically taking fresh air that the CPU wants to pull through the cooler.
Interesting. You know,
I think so.
It actually makes a difference. It's not a major difference, but that would be the best way to explain why it's doing
It's not enough of a difference to make me want to have an intake and an exhaust up top.
But we'll check the GPU, because GPU is probably going to be more dependent on...
It shouldn't change, really.
It shouldn't change. It's going to be more dependent on the overall temperature of the case. It's lower.
Slightly lower, yeah.
But it's basically 72 degrees. So we are getting to that point. We're at 5 fans. Is it going to get any better? I don't know. We're at the point now where we're in like new fan mounting territory. We'll have one more
front intake.
And then at that point will be what is probably known as a traditional like layout there. And then we have like side mounted fans, bottom fans. We'll see if that makes a difference. But let's see what Benchmarkus has to say about it.
All right, we got our beautiful boy Benchmarkus back. 5 fans, guys. And this is the first time where we think we might have slightly, and I mean slightly, hurt the actual CPU cooling. The GPU was ever so slightly cooler, but CPU, you know, having the Noctua theory now that we know, where basically it's saying if we have an exhaust right above our CPU cooler, it's almost, instead of air funneling through the cooler, it's kind of hitting one of those, you know? Yeah. It is crazy that there is a difference, but it's also interesting that it's like 1 degree.
Yeah, not a major difference for sure. We'll see. Normally we go up and around this corner is when our CPU temp and usage tends to spike when it starts to load in the Oblivion portal and everything. But it's getting a little, no, it's actually not getting that much higher. So
it's cooler almost, interestingly enough.
It does seem cooler. Not the most scientific way for us to test it, but again, just watching a game and running the test, it seems cooler so far.
Maybe, you know, when we're doing the OCCT test and it's like just stressing the CPU in that moment, I don't know.
Yeah. Interesting data for you to work with, but will we get any cooler? Will things get worse? Will things get weird? We got to continue to go. We hit 69 at one point, so we did hit that upper. Honestly, these are all numbers that you wouldn't be really worried about. That extra fan did not make the difference, is what I would comfortably say at that point. But we got to add the 6th fan.
Which would be cool, because we're going to be, this is going to be like the traditional, like if we were going to build this PC, actually this is probably how it'd end up, is this last fan in the front.
Yeah, so let's go and add that last fan and see what it does. God, this is getting so exhausting. Just kidding, that's actually an intake fan. That joke doesn't work, but we have 3 intake fans now and 3 exhaust. I mean, this case could technically fit a 3rd exhaust up top. Well, that'll probably be the next thing we do. But this is pretty traditional for just a mid-tower case.
Yep, this is about where we would normally end up. So we're about to see just, it'll be interesting to see how many degrees in between all of these are really dropping, because I think the moral of the story so far is 1 fan each time doesn't change much. But when you go from 0 to 5 fans, it's a pretty big difference.
All right, guys, so 6 fans are done, and let's see what kind of report we got. So let's start off with our CPU average, and it looks like we went down.
We did a little bit.
Barely. Again, we're still at 68, so with the 6 fans, we had 68.03 degrees Celsius versus 68.89. No one's buying a fan to go down by less than a degree. I mean, some of you might.
Some of you might.
For the max, wow, we went down a little bit more than that, but 69.94 on the 6 fan versus 70.70 on the 5 fan. And yeah, okay, not a major difference in CPU department. It's down, and before we went up. So
yeah, this is good.
This is good. We're moving on. We have more fans to balance things out. So let's go down to graphics card.
It is seeming like so far too, it seems like it's not just the placement, but also the number of fans, you know? Yep. Like having an even number seems better than an odd.
All right, GPU temperature. So this one went down the most, actually.
Ooh.
So 70.37 degrees Celsius versus 72.07 on the average. So 2 degrees for the most part, a little below 2.
That makes sense, because we just added the bottom front intake, so I think we're starting to get that air kind of going up into the GPU.
So the GPU is getting more fresh air. So front fans, if your GPU needs to cool better, that's the way to go. And the max seems to be down as well by around 2 degrees. So 71.87 with 6 versus 73.34. Cue the man himself.
All right, Bench Marcus here and in the flesh, looking good as always. We got our 6 fans here. This is like what we were telling you guys. This is like our typical, you know, like toasty PC bro setup. You know, typically we don't do like a full 3 fans up top. Usually it's gonna be like 2 up top, 1 in the back, and then, you know, you always fill the front to look the best. I feel like we're seeing about a degree or 2. I remember seeing like 63-ish constantly before, so. All right, GPU's went up a little bit.
Last time we went up around this corner, the CPU didn't spike up. Oh, it's doing it now. This seems to be the inconsistency of games, ladies and gentlemen, because like at that point we hit 70. Before we didn't hit 70, so we're again at that margin of error point where will adding any more fans help? We'll find out. But so far, it's making a minute difference. The beginning, big difference. And if Jackson mentioned, if you compare the 0 fans to now, very dramatic difference. But now we're at the point now where you're just adding them for potentially aesthetic reasons. Will it make a difference? We'll keep going and we'll find out.
And the other thing that we really want you guys to remember too is the fact that we're not like, we could spend a lot of time in this and test different cases. We could do like, oh, here's 2 intake and 4 exhaust. We could change RPMs, but like at the end of the day, we're the Toasty Bros. We got to get this video done in a somewhat scientific matter without making this video 4 hours long.
You want it to be digestible. This is the simple part of it, but this could be a very broad topic if you want it to be. Let's go ahead and add fan number 7.
Check it out.
The final, what I would quote as normal fan, has been installed. So,
yeah, it looks very normal now. So we got, what is that? We got 4 exhaust, 3 intake. And I think that we're gonna probably see similar numbers, but I get this weird feeling that the next test we do when we add our first basement fan, I feel like that GPU is gonna be really happy.
7 fans, ladies and gentlemen. We have made it to 7 fans, and this is the data we have, and we went up. We went up in temperature by a decent amount, actually, more than I thought we would. So we added another exhaust fan, correct?
Yeah.
So we added another exhaust fan.
Ooh, but it's above that front intake again.
With 7 fans on the CPU, we got an average of 69.07 versus 68.03 with 6 fans. The max is 71.06 on 7 fans versus 69.94 on 6 fans. To add more intake and less exhaust up top to get the most optimal. But again, it's within margin of error at that point. But we are kind of going back and forth now a little bit. We're not really dropping because of this, because we're going front fan, it goes down, add the top fan, it goes up. It's just kind of back and forth.
I got a theory that once we get like one of those bottom fans in to kind of replace some of the air that the top one's stealing, I bet we're really gonna drop.
And speaking of
the GPU like has to be better.
The
right?
GPU has to be better, you would think. The GPU is worse.
Oh, it's slightly worse.
Slightly worse. So 70.95 degrees Celsius on the 7 fans on the average versus 70.37 on the 6 fans. The max is 72.55 on the 7 fans versus 71.87 on 6. You know, there's that. Well, you know what? We gotta see bench Marcus again. This is gonna be just a bench Marcus like compilation. Just me saying bench Marcus, bench Marcus. Here we go.
All right, we got benchmark is out and at it again, and seems like I feel like we're maybe 1 degree again.
Yeah, it's been hovering around like 63 to 61 across the past few tests, especially in the gaming load, where we're not stress testing everything in 100%. So gaming-wise, we might be close to our peak, but the biggest one I know we keep talking about is that fan for that GPU. I think that's where we want to see, will the GPU temp get below 60? Will it be right at 60? Will that make a difference? We'll see, because we're still hitting 70 degrees, 71 at times on the CPU going up to the spot.
And I guess in theory, even beyond the power supply, once we get those side fans, I think it seems like intake is what this PC really is going to want to have. So I guess maybe doing those as intake might actually help.
Yeah. So we'll have just a ton of intake. Exhaust doesn't seem to matter all that much. So really, we're just gonna go full intake from here on out and see where that goes. But yeah, temperatures, they're pretty similar.
Yeah, looking about the same. So, all right, we'll put benchmark to rest for another test. And I think we're gonna go for the center bottom fan now as intake. Yeah,
because the other side is right above the power supply, so we don't think that one's gonna be as valuable. That'll be the last fan if we get to that point. So we're just gonna do the one that actually give us some air and remove that plastic filter to give airflow from the power supply basement.
Let's do it. So hopefully this doesn't skew our test results too much, but we have been running the whole time with this little basement filter, which I'm sure most of you home would probably remove anyways, but we just wanted to run the case in its stock form. We got our bottom fan right here set to intake. So now we should be pulling even more air inside this case. So I'll be shocked if this doesn't make a difference.
Let's do it. Okay guys, we are now at 8 and 7 fans. And this one's the most interesting for the GPU. We'll start with the CPU because we have that extra fan right underneath the GPU. CPU-wise, it looks like it actually made a little difference, little dent, barely.
This is probably the smallest difference we've seen.
This is the smallest difference, like 0.4. So with the 8 fans, we got a 69.02 degrees Celsius average versus 69.07 with the 7 fans. The max is 71.02 with 8 fans versus 71.06 with 7 fans. Now the GPU is where things might get a little interesting, or it may not be interesting at all.
I think what's crazy is the fact that we didn't only just had a fan, but we opened up a whole other channel of air, and for the CPU, it didn't really seem to care.
Very little difference. So we're looking at an average of 70.76 with 8 fans with that particular fan giving extra airflow to the GPU versus 70.95. It's just a little better. It's not that much better. I'd be curious, again, we're not diving that deep into testing. I'd be curious if that fan on its own would make a massive difference versus, or like maybe one fan with one of those fans there. I feel like we just have so much airflow in this build now that maybe that's not impacting that much.
I know we haven't talked about it much, but so we're not gonna make it a big deal now, but I will say, adding an extra fan, look at the minimum. We dropped 3 degrees on the minimum, so that's interesting.
That is interesting. The minimums were lower. The max 72.21 with 8 fans versus 72.55. So it went down, but you know what? Let's see if the GPU eats up that extra airflow when we play a game.
All right, benchmark is back at it again. We're running up that mountain. So, yeah, I'm not really seeing a difference.
Yeah.
That's it's interesting. I really thought that not only the fan down there would have helped, but just the fact that we opened up an extra square foot of space, or not space, extra square foot of airflow at the bottom. taking off that, because that wasn't a filter, that was like a piece of paper that really blocked airflow from the basement.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, I feel like we're getting to a point where airflow really is getting overrated. It only really seemed like the first 2 to 4 tests we did were like big, right? Like adding that exhaust fan and adding that first intake fan, huge. But after that, it's kind of just like marginal gains.
Yeah, at least with this test that we have, again, hardware may vary depending on what you have. You know, if your stuff runs naturally hotter, you might get more benefit from more air. But in this scenario, with this testing methodology, it seems like we are now hitting that wall.
So our question is, so for the next one, we're kind of thinking, because we know adding one above the power supplies probably going to do like nothing, honestly, especially if this one didn't do anything. So we think, you know, just for going to the next part that might make a big difference, maybe the middle of the side, which that's going to be a whole nother, we're going to do intake again.
Be a whole nother intake. So we'll see. And if that doesn't make a difference, then we might have hit our absolute ceiling at that point.
We can just add the rest of them and just run
Call
the
it
test
there.
one more time.
But yeah, let's go ahead and add another extra fan. Look at that fan.
Ignore the cable management. We'll fix that in a minute. But first, we're going to run the test. So we're up to, is that 9?
9 fans.
9 fans. So this is a little bit of a freaky layout, but we think rather than adding one right now above the power supply, which we're like, there's no way it's going to make a difference, we might as well add the next fan. And, you know, once again, there was a huge block like right here. See how you can see my hand now? You couldn't really get through any of that. So I'm wondering if just having this off alone will help. But last time I thought that it didn't. So let's go and run the test.
Okay, guys. 9 versus 8 fans. We see a difference.
Ooh.
There's a difference. And I think it's interesting. We won't really necessarily know the data from this video, but just opening this up in general would probably add a bunch of extra airflow. I mean, it does. It doesn't probably do it, it actually does. And having a fan to push that will definitely help. The average on the 9 fan was 68.28 on the CPU versus 69.02 on the CPU with only 8 fans. The max was 69.75 versus 71.02.
So a little over a degree for both.
Nice, that's pretty cool. Let's scroll down to the GPU. Will the GPU benefit from this? I'm gonna bet
it has to.
I don't know.
You don't think so?
I don't know. I'm gonna bet it wasn't as much as the CPU. It could have benefited, but let's see. Very, very little. So once again, so 9 fans, 70.46 average versus 70.76 with 8 fans. The max of 72.07 versus 72.21. So improvement, yes. Very little. Let's see what gameplay looks like.
All right, benchmark is back at it again, and we're gonna run up the mountain like we always do. We normally saw 61-61 right away, so.
It's taken a little bit to get there, but now we're at 61-61.
All right, hold on. I think, and now if I'm not mistaken, this test I think is the best temps we've seen so far, right?
Yes.
I think.
And we've been, I think 63 to 65 has been pretty consistent. 62 for CPU and stuff has been pretty good. We'll see if the CPU spikes here. It's holding. But then again, this test, we've had it a couple times where it just does not spike, and it may spike when we actually run into the gates here, but 70. All right, so we hit 70, 72.
Dude, it's when I talk to freaking this Salvani
It's
guy.
whatever that like depth of field effect is. I feel like that's what's happening there. This, I mean, it's maybe a degree.
Yeah.
But it's doing something. Because again, based on the testing we saw, it was barely a degree. So it is doing something. Now, do we add 1 more fan or do we jump to 2 more fans?
You know, I'm almost thinking we just finish out the test and just add our, basically like, what would that be, is it 3? Last 3 fans?
Yeah, it'll be our last 3 fans. So we'll have the 2 spots on the backside and the 1 over the power supply, which we expect to do very little. If for whatever reason we do that and there's a dramatic jump, then we'll tell you guys, whoa, crazy. But honestly, we don't expect it to be a dramatic jump.
I think we might see another degree or 2.
All right,
you know?
Let's run our 3 fans and finally be to 12. We're jumping. We're making an executive decision.
Fans.
Guys, the build looks fabulous.
It does, looks pretty good. Cable management's subpar, but we have this thing 12 freaking fans. So we got, what do we got? Intake, and then the whole top is exhaust. So I mean, in theory, with heat rising and everything, this should make sense. Will it drop the temp even more than 9 fans did? Maybe another degree or 2, but hey, if it's more than that,
we might have to dial
science.
things back a little bit. Science.
Yeah.
All right, guys, so we're done with our testing. We are now looking at OCCT with 12 fans versus 9, which we decided to jump to 12 because we just noticed things were not improving that much. And it looks like that was a good decision because 12 fans with a CPU average, we got an average of 68.05 degrees Celsius versus 68.28 degrees Celsius with 9 fans. We jumped 3 fans and didn't even drop a full degree. So there you go. The max was about the same, 69.99 versus 69.75. Again, the thing is with fans, and we'll look at the GPU temperature and we can talk more about it. The thing is with fans, there is a point of return, which we're starting to discover, where the fan's functionality is not really that important and you're more just getting them for aesthetic purposes. I mean, this build looks great, don't get me wrong, but this video is focused on what actually helps. And as you can see, we'll see what the GPU looks like. Same deal, 70.28 degrees Celsius versus 70.46 degrees Celsius. The max was 71.61 versus 72.07. Is it an improvement? Yes. Does it make a real difference? No, not really. But we gotta give Bench Marcus his final run up that mountain, and then we'll come to a conclusion about this video, because I think we have some interesting data that we can work with.
All right, guys, it is Bench Marcus's final run. The king, the myth, the legend himself. We're gonna go ahead and ascend up this wonderful mountain in which we ascend. And yeah, I mean, it's like, I feel like the last 7 fans that we've done, it's like 61, going up. I will say, I feel like it maybe was slightly cooler just now, because I saw like 59 for a second.
Yeah.
We'll see if we get our typical spike. And it's the whole concept too of like, we're not running our fans, they're fixed RPM. They're not gonna be moving with the CPU. So is that gonna make it to where when we get like that spike to 70, it's not gonna cool down as quickly like it would if you were running like system fan headers?
Yeah, I feel like we got to the point after we got the normal fan placement installed that the cooling of the CPU and GPU is much more reliant on the CPU cooler and the GPU cooler. Like, it was less to do with the case and more to do with whatever cooling hardware it has. So it's really only so much air you can throw at the GPU and CPU to actually make a difference.
This is also just, it's like I said before too, this is a really good high airflow case. It's not the best, like there's even more airflow cases you can get on the market because we're using glass. There's definitely cases where it's like full mesh and everything. But I think we're at the point that we're proving too is like the CPU cooler can only displace so much heat itself as well. So naturally, oh my God, Bench Marcus is almost gonna die.
Oh, that John almost killed you.
John almost got me, little Jonah. But yeah, the long story short too is like if we had a liquid cooler, we'd probably get different results. If maybe we had a smaller graphics card that had a smaller heat sink, it'd probably be different results too. But I think the glory of this is we had a fixed control of, we didn't change any hardware, we didn't change RPM. It was literally just the raw test of numbers of fans.
So we hope you guys enjoyed this video and this experiment. We're gonna go ahead and gather all our thoughts, all the data, give our overall just impressions of this test, what we thought was surprising, what wasn't surprising. And yeah, we had a lot of fun testing, and we're going to hopefully have given you guys something at home to learn. And Bench Marcus is about to get messed up.
Die.
You're
Die.
You don't stand a chance against these guys.
So guys, we got some really interesting test results out of this really long 3-day experiment with OCCT and running Bench Marcus. So we made this nice graph, which may look different than the one I'm looking at, but the overall consensus is from 0 to 12 fans. On the CPU, we dropped almost 10 degrees for the average and the max temperature. So pretty big number, right? From 0 to 12 fans. And the GPU, on the other hand, we really only dropped about 4 to 5 degrees Celsius for the max and average, from no fans at all to 12 whole fans. And I think really the big consensus that Matt and I found from this graph is from 0 to 2 fans is the biggest impact. That's when you really start to see those numbers kind of drop. And then once you go past 2 fans, it is very diminishing returns. So your typical, 1 intake, 1 exhaust is actually the biggest bang for buck.
Now, a fun little side note that we accidentally stumbled upon was when we add that extra exhaust fan up top that technically was taking away the fresh air coming from the front of the case to the CPU cooler, we saw our temperature go up a little bit. So that was cool to actually see that in practice, because I've seen the theory of that before from Noctua and other people on the internet, how you shouldn't run that setup. Is it gonna be a major factor in terms of temperature in the long run? No, it was like a degree difference, but it was cool to see that you could actually see a difference to that. And I think this whole test really goes to show, if you have a case that has good ventilation, there's a lot of airflow inside the case, in particular with this frame case, we have a lot of open spots for airs to get in. You don't need a ton of fans to get proper airflow, especially with how efficient PC components are nowadays.
Now obviously one last disclaimer is the fact that we could have used a case that had even less airflow, we could have used things like 140mm fans, we could have gotten liquid cooling, there's so many different things we could have done. But I think the interesting part about this experiment is just the fact that adding more fans does not make nearly as big of a difference as I thought it would, but I'd like to know down below what you guys think, and also the fact that I think if we had like a 5090 and like let's say an i9, even then I think we'd have a higher starting temp, I think we'd have higher averages and everything, but still with an air cooler you're gonna reach your max temp really quick because of the fact that if you have a case that can disperse air pretty quick, it's not just gonna keep building and building, it's gonna go somewhere.
So we hope you guys enjoyed this experiment today. If you want to buy in this stuff from today's video, links in the description down below will be affiliates. They will help us out. Shout out to Corsair. A lot of this stuff is Corsair stuff that they send over, so thank you to them for sending stuff so we can do experiments like this here on the channel. And if there's any other experiments you want to see, comment down below.
But as always, we hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure you check out our other 2 YouTube channels and also our twitch.tv/ToastyBros. Do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
And we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.
So this PC right here will actually be for sale at PCBros.tech once we actually put the right amount of screws in the fans and clean up the cable management, but it's a pretty slick build that Benchmark has got to run at 4K on.
PCBros.tech. You can buy this gaming PC we featured in this video and a bunch of other ones, and even stuff like this build mat that you could build your gaming PCs on if you're a PC builder and you don't want to buy a pre-build. Buy stuff like this. Use code ToastyBros on checkout. You'll save 3% in your next purchase. See you guys later. Goodbye.